ikuti este ginagawa ng gobyerno para necesidad i ahensya siya ni para ta serbi publiko i annual budget appropriation. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're back in the Committee of the Whole on the matter of Bill 426, the request by the Governor of Guam for the executive budget for fiscal year 2013 for the operations and services of the government of Guam to the people of Guam. When we broke yesterday, we were on the discussion of the Department of Customs, but there was a request earlier to that discussion on a amendment that was offered by Senator Judy Guthertz. The amendment basically required that of the general fund appropriation to the Department of Agriculture, $98,083 would be earmarked, set aside, and allocated for the Guam Animals in Need GGO shelter for the operations of that. And there was a request that we bring in the representatives of GAIN, and of course, because the appropriation is to the Department of Agriculture as well. So at this time, I'd like to, yes, Senator Rory Respicio.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning. Before we bring the individuals in, can we just dispose of this amendment that I have prepared yesterday and that we were going to do yesterday, but we were going to just delay it until this morning?
Okay.
And since the discussion regarding unexpended appropriations is still fresh in our minds, and even though you heard from BBMR and DOA saying that they would release these allotments on time, I amended my original approach to provide for a trigger. That if in the event they're true to their word, then this is not necessary, and they can also honor their commitment of not providing for these carryover authorizations. And so I prepared this amendment. I passed it out.
Can we do that at?
Okay, I'm just concerned that the longer it takes to do this, our memories will fade.
We'll refresh them, Senator.
And I'll do my best to help with that.
Okay, thank you very much, Senator. Thank you very much for your understanding and cooperation. Okay, we'll go ahead then and bring in the representatives from GAIN and representatives from Agriculture. Yes. Today's the 22nd? Today's the 22nd? Thank you. Thank you very much, Mrs. Masi. We'll go ahead and have the panel introduce themselves for the record, and then we'll begin the discussion on the amendment by Senator Guthertz to kind of just give an overview of the amendment briefly, and then we'll go back to Senator Frank Bloss, who had the floor prior to suspension of the discussion on the amendment. So just go down the line.
Buenas and half a day. I'm Tita Taitagui. I'm personally the director of the Department of Agriculture.
I'm Tom Poole. I'm the veterinarian for the Department of Agriculture.
Valerie Bach. I'm Vice President of Guam Animals in Need, the board.
Jeff Manabusan, General Director.
Hafide Tiami Bamba, Board Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Masi, and welcome. Senator Guthertz, just real brief, or shall we just go directly to Senator Blas?
A couple items. I just want to thank these folks for being here, Director and Dr. Poole and folks from GAIN. Thank you for being here. The reason we asked for this little get-together was because yesterday when we were going through the budget document, I had discovered that there was not an inclusion in the draft budget of the governor and our substitute budget for an appropriation for the animal shelter operation that GAIN currently provides services for on behalf of the government. And I was very curious about it, very concerned about it, and I wanted to include it in this budget. And my colleagues, of course, have a lot of questions. And so the best thing to do when there are questions is to bring the key folks in. So that's why we're here this morning. What's at stake is whether or not the appropriation will be included in this budget. So that's what's at stake now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Guthertz. Senator Blas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I can remember correctly, the amendment was for how much?
98,000.
98,000. And that money was going to come from, if you can refresh my, come from where?
The appropriation is the Department of Agriculture received a general fund appropriation of a little over $2 million, and the amendment by Senator Guthertz was that off the general fund appropriation of $2 million, $2+ million, 98,000 will be allocated for the Guam Animals in Need Shelter in Jigo.
Okay. And there, when that came up, one of the issues that I had is with regards to, I guess, the operations of GAIN and the operations of the facility by a nonprofit, and I was just a little interested in with regards to the financials of the organization, recognizing that it is a nonprofit, and I'm fully aware that there were a number of times that you did have fundraising events, and I just wanted to see the financials with respect to the organization and the intent and how you intend to use the $98,000, and also maybe answer some questions as to how appropriations that were provided to GAIN in the past were used as well. So if I can look to you, Ms. Bach, for some of that information with regards to the financials.
Certainly. I spoke with our accountant this morning, and she gave me the statement of activities for the year ending 2011. And the shelter expenses last year were $180,512, and 98,000 was appropriated. No, I'm sorry, $100,000 was appropriated from the government of Guam.
Right.
So you can see there that 80,000 went for not only the employees' expenses, but vet care, medicine, education, our spay and neuter program, food, cleaning supplies, and vet runs where people, or that's volunteer, people driving the animals to the vets.
Okay. Do you have a sheet that you can share with us?
Yes, I do. I got this from her early or just before I got here,
No problem.
so I have one copy.
We can make copies.
So sorry about that, but it was rushed.
Okay. Well, and Mr. Chair, before I can continue my line of questioning with Ms. Bach here, I want to ask Director Taidagui. I noticed that in your contractual services here for agriculture, It's 143,254. Could that be because this money was supposed to come from there?
Definitely, sir.
So it's been
coming
there all
out
the time.
from, that 98 is coming out from.
The initial submission was 98,000 as part of the, was part of the budget.
Yeah.
That was the initial submission to BBMR.
But it
Yeah.
was reduced, right?
So I don't know if we can.
Yeah, we don't know who reduced it, but originally we have submitted the 143 for contractual, and part of that will be going to gains the 98,000.
So, in light of that revelation, Mr. Chair, if it's budgeted, I would proffer and I would suggest that maybe the good senator's amendment would just be made to affirm that, you know, of the contractual, that 98, just an affirmation.
That's correct. I mean, because the budget that will be given to the executive is a gross number, a lump sum amount.
Okay.
I think what this does, if it was included in there, is that it makes sure that of the gross amount given to the department, that 98 will be allocated for support of the animal shelter.
Okay.
So it doesn't increase the budget itself, but it just allocates that portion of the budget.
Would it be then necessary to affirm that it would come out of the object class 250?
Well, there would be no object class. It's not controlling the object classification.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that in light of that, you know, and I appreciate the organization coming in and providing the financials. I need to take the position that you know, with any non-government organization that's going to be receiving money, I think that it should be the practice, if you will, of being able to provide the financials. And I'm sorry that, you know, this whole exercise had to brought this down here, but I think that it's prudent and I think it's good on your part, because I'm sure there are some questions with regards to you know, what you intend to do with the $98,000. Okay, and first off, how much does it cost for Gain to operate the facility?
On the sheet that he should be handing to you shortly, the cost for the shelter, it's down at the bottom, it was $180,000, or $180,512. But that doesn't include things like maintenance and all the volunteers that come in and work for free. Also, this last year, I would just like all of you senators to know that due to volunteers from Chugach, Home Depot, Remax, and Gresco, and some others, we made a $22,000 renovation to the shelter, and that is not Gain shelter. We're renting it from the government of Guam. So that was $22,000 put into the shelter of volunteer work.
How many employees do you have paid by the organization?
5. I believe only 2 are full-time. We've had some changes in the past few days, actually. So I believe only 2 are full-time, and then we have 3 that are part-time. Our shelter manager is off island. Her husband got in a motorcycle wreck, and so he's getting repaired in the Philippines, and so we've been shuffling employees around trying to cover for her being gone. And so I think it's 3 part-time.
Senator Blas?
That's all the questions I have for now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. This must be Senator Blas. Senator Mabini?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a follow-up to the previous speaker, just for clarification, these type of reports are usually received by who? On a regular basis?
I'm sorry?
The
No,
financial type of reports?
This is an annual report.
Okay, but
Yeah.
do you provide regular reports, and to whom?
Yes, I'd have to ask the finance accountant person, because I don't know. I know we just had an audit by Deloitte and Touche, and we paid $5,000 for that.
Right,
I remember because I was so surprised at the amount that it cost.
No,
In addition to that, as a recipient of a government appropriation, all the nonprofits who receive that appropriation file a quarterly report with the legislature on what they use the funds provided to them in the appropriation for.
Okay.
That's what we pulled up yesterday.
All right, good. So, and then, and a question to the director, does she receive those reports regularly, so she sees the operations? Okay,
No.
so they do receive the monthly reports. All right, thank you. And just for clarification, my prior life, I had served as a board member for Gaines, so I'm fairly familiar with the challenges, the financial challenges, and the operational challenges in running the shelter. And so I do appreciate you bringing the most recent statement of activities here to just to demonstrate to us the cost and the effort that it takes to run a shelter. Now, currently, could you clarify how much is appropriated, or how much have you received? How much allotments have you received?
This year, we have only received $41,685. $98,000 was appropriated, but only $83,000 was to be loaded at BBMR because of the 15% holdback. And we're still waiting for a payment for our last submission.
So about half of the contract
Yeah.
you received. So who pays for the rest to run the shelter?
Our people who donate to us, our donations.
Okay, and I just think that it's important that we put that on public record so we know, and the public realizes the efforts. Now I
Yes,
also
thank you.
understand that, and maybe Dr. Poole could also clarify this. Shelters that's a public responsibility, correct? Or
Did you say a public responsibility?
government responsibility?
Yes, I would agree.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Mabini. I have Senator Guthertz, and then Senator Palacios, and then Senator Yamashita.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Director, are you trying to facilitate the release of some of the monies still owed to GAIN for this fiscal year?
I'm not sure if it's I know we spoke to him a while back, just like a week or two ago, but at that time we were, but I don't know, it may be in the mail.
Okay.
I'm not
Maybe the
sure.
director can tell us. So what's the status of the monies that they're still waiting for?
We are definitely working on it. We
Okay.
try to get our billing into BMR, but of course it's the budget constraint that sometimes don't get the money out. So, but we're definitely working on it. Thank you.
You're working on it, okay. Now, how critical is this subsidy for the shelter operation? Can you tell us? What would happen if it was not available to you?
If the government didn't give us that money to the $100,000 or 98, what we're talking about, the shelter would have to close.
It would have to close.
It would have to close.
Okay.
We have a 30-year lease on the property, but there would be no way that we would be able to pay our employees.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, just to make sure I understand this, because yesterday it appeared to me that the monies were not going to be available for next fiscal year because they were not specifically mentioned in the budget of the governor or in the substitute bill. So now we have been informed that the monies have been considered to be within the appropriation that will be available to the Department of Agriculture when the 2013 budget is approved by this legislature. Am I correct?
Yes.
And that the Department of Agriculture is reserving approximately $98,000 of their appropriation to fund the shelter operation. Am I correct?
Yes, and it'll be expressly clear
In the
if your
language.
amendments passes.
Yes. Well, that was my intent, to make sure that the language in the budget specifically says that 98,000, whatever the dollar amount is, shall be dedicated from the Department of Agriculture's budget for 2013 for the operations, continued operations of the animal shelter in Jigo.
Yes.
Okay, so I feel satisfied with that. I also want to say, Mr. Chairman, that, and I don't think a lot of us know here, that there are a lot of volunteers that help out at the shelter, and I go up there periodically. Frankly, it's a stress release to go up there. I like to go up there to get away from things when I'm able to, and just to interact with the staff there and to check out how the animals are and so forth. And there's a tremendous amount of volunteerism, ranging in ages from young people, students, high school students, college students, to retired people, to active duty personnel, to the dependents of active duty personnel, to our village residents, to just people in general that are committed to this effort. And the salaried employees there are responsible for the management and operations of the facility, and to ensure that all the laws of Guam, particularly those that Dr. Poole enforces, are observed in the operation of that shelter. So I think the people of Guam are benefiting tremendously from that operation, and I'm very pleased that this legislature is recognizing this and is ensuring that this will be continuing activity in this coming fiscal year budget. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I know Senator Ada has been a visitor up there as well. Okay, I have Senator Palacios, Senator Yamashita, and then Senator Tama.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I would like to suggest, perhaps if it requires an amendment, the absolute 98,000 year mark with that kind of language. I would like to the language to read that the the Director, Department of Agriculture, is authorized to expend up to, so that way we give the Department of Agriculture in a position to be able to, I guess, gauge what is the best estimate cost that it would need really to provide the service. But if you provide an absolute 98,000, then there's really no room for negotiation, which probably would not be in the best interest of the people of Guam. But up to 98,000, that is, otherwise, I mean, so
Yes.
that's my comment
Yeah,
regarding that. And I think that if there is an amendment, because there's an amendment that I would like it to be up to 98,000.
So you're requesting to amend the amendment.
If there is an amendment that I'm
Yes.
amending with
There
that
is-
language up to 98,000.
All right, there's an amendment, Senator, do we have a copy of the Guthrie's amendment? It's being copied? Okay. And the amendment by Senator Palacios would add the words up to 98,000. Okay? So we're going to, anybody have any objections to entertaining the amendment to the amendment before the written copy comes to you? Are we following it? The amendment, the current amendment offered by Senator Guthrie says there shall be allocated $98,000 and some odd dollars for the operations of the Guam Animals in Need Shelter. And the amendment by Senator Palacios that's being offered is, the amount of up to $98,000. The current amendment reads, the sum of $198,083 shall be allocated from the General Fund appropriation in Section 2 to the Department of Agriculture for fiscal year 13 for the operations of the Guam Animals in Need Shelter in Jigo. So the amendment being offered by Senator Palacios to this is up to the sum of $98,000 shall be allocated. So on the amendment by Senator Palacios, I have Senator Respicio first, Senator Guthrie, and then Senator Yamashita on the amendment by Senator Palacios.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I understand the intent of the amendment and the sponsors of the amendment's desire to make sure that GAIN gets the money that's required. But you know, my concern has always been we don't want to give the administration too much discretionary authority, and this amendment to the amendment could basically give GAIN $1,000 and call it a day, and say up to $98,000, but the Director of Administration, the Director of Agriculture, and all the parties involved in the executive branch can say, well, I'm reading the language of this law and it says up to $98,000. So if I've released $1,000 to your organization, we satisfied the requirement of that. And so I just ask that we proceed with caution. I rise to an objection.
Okay. Thank you very much. Senator Guthertz, on the amendment to the amendment. Thank you very much, Senator Guthertz. Senator Yamashita.
Thank you very much, Speaker Ben, and welcome everyone for joining us this morning. Speaker Ben, certainly this particular part of life is, I'm not real knowledgeable of it. And so my question is GAIN the only place that helps the Department of Agriculture in this regard? And, you know, because I'm looking at Dr. Poole, and are there other places, you know, certainly when the body entertained an amendment by me yesterday, Senator Tina Munoz-Barnes was here and raised some concerns about animal control and shelter practices. And I'm wondering, is GAIN the only place that Department of Agriculture utilizes to help us with our animals?
I'll leave that to the department to answer.
Senator Yamashita, I would say that GAIN is certainly the principal, you know, aid in that. We have, I think, a very good relationship with GAIN. We've had a relationship for a long time. I believe the current contract started in 2000. And the way it works, the contract states, as Ms. Bach mentioned, it's a 30-year lease, and we pay for the tipping fees, we pay for the electricity, we pay for the water, we pay for the telephones. We don't pay for salaries. We pay for those other expenses. And those have fluctuated some over time. I remember we had one water bill once that was $76,000 about 3 years ago. And it was because GWA had not actually read the meter for about 6 months they'd been estimating. And there was an underground water leak that we didn't know about and ran that bill up really big. So sometimes we have these expenditures that are well out of the budget. But more directly to answer your question, I think GAIN is our principal ally. There are other animal welfare organizations on Guam, but our principal ally is GAIN.
So, Speaker Ben, indeed, you know, the principal organization is GAIN, but there are others. Would it not be wise to ensure that those other shelters or other places are also supported through the government contributions? Because how else then, how do we support those others?
GAIN is the one that has an agreement with the government to operate the shelter. So it's for the shelter services. So for other animal control services, I don't know.
Right, and so as Senator Tina Munoz-Barnes raised the issue yesterday of ensuring that we do this efficiently and effectively and fully, right? It just comes to mind, you know, if indeed there's only one place, and you just said no, you said this is the principal place, but that there are other places that help you with animal control. Did I mishear you? Because the reactions to your right. I'm just wondering.
No, perhaps I misspoke. In terms of just the animal control, all of the animals that we take are taken to the shelter. Now the shelter is Department of Agriculture property. That's the nature of the lease, in that GAIN runs the animal shelter for us. And in exchange for that, they get the use of the facilities for their own work. And we pay those expenses that I mentioned. But all of the animals we take up are taken to the animal shelter. It is a GovGuam responsibility to provide for these animals that are taken care of. And that's why we went into this contract with GAIN to run the shelter before us. It was deemed in 2000 to be, I assume, more efficient to have an outside agency run it. Prior to that, it had been run when this mission was in the Department of Public Health. There was, I think, 21 employees in that section. That included animal control, but that also included the running of the shelter.
And so, Speaker Ben, again, going back to yesterday's conversation, and I'll do more homework in this area, but it sounds to me that things really aren't under control. And I'll have more conversations with Senator Tina Rosemary Barnes, but it sounds like there are great concerns by our mayors. And certainly, I know someone who just got bitten by dogs. And so, but I just wanted that clarified. So thank you, Speaker Ben.
Thank you very much. Senator, Senator Yamashita. Any other discussion on the amendment by Senator Palacios? Senator Palacios?
Before we close, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask you, perhaps you can enlighten me. The language here actually is disturbing to me when it says shall be allocated, which means that absolutely it shall be allocated to gains, nobody else. That's the disturbing part of that. And again, I just want my colleague to understand that that's the implication of the Gotthard's amendment.
Yes.
To your knowledge, Mr. Chairman, and I don't know if this is appropriate, was this the kind of provision in the last,
Yes.
this current budget, is that it shall be
Yes.
allocated?
It was actually, yes,
Okay.
correct.
Okay, but that's all my concern is that I don't want to technically handcuff the Department of Agriculture and its ability to negotiate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So on the Palacios amendment, all in favor, please raise your hand. Amendment fails. We're back on the Gotthard's amendment. Any other discussion? No additional, I'm sorry, Senator Ada. Senator Ada, did you want to speak on the Palacios amendment?
No.
No, okay. All right, so Senator Ada.
On the Gotthard's amendment, I just want to get clarification. The narrative says 198, but then in parentheses it's 98,000.
It's 98. My
98.
apologies.
Okay. Well, I just want to say that I certainly support this amendment here. I've visited Gain on a number of occasions. In fact, I carry on my cell phone the picture of a puppy that I picked because this is the closest I can get to owning a dog. But the number of times that I've been up there, I've been very impressed with the operation that takes place up there. The cleanliness, how well they care for the animals, and the people are very friendly. So certainly I would want to see that operation continue because I think they do provide a service to the community.
Thank you very much, Senator Ada. Any other additional member wish to speak? Speaker Wampat.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And thank you very much for coming in as well and caring for our animals. Excuse me. I mean, I've adopted 3. And of course, I have 3 children as well. And they lived a long life, so. But I know you said that a lot of times it's through volunteers who come and support the organization. And I just wanted to let you know that this year, or last year they started, but this year will be the full-scale implementation of service learning for our school children who must put in so many hours as part of their credit.
Yeah.
So, and children are one of the best, of course, who would love to do this and would want to help on them. Just saying that I'd like for you to reach out then maybe to the schools as well, because this has to be a learning process for them as well to provide services, to the community, and this is definitely one worth community service. So I thank you very much for what you do, and please reach out to our school children. You'll be
Yes,
helping
ma'am.
them out too with their course credits that they need to graduate.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you very much, Speaker Wampat. Any other members? If not, I'm going to call for the vote on the amendment. On the amendment by Senator Gothards, all in favor, please raise your hand. Any objections? I'm go. No objection? All right. Makes it easy. Thank you very much. Yes. The amendment. Okay. The amendment passes. Now say thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, my colleagues. We'll now proceed where we left off yesterday. When we left off yesterday, we were having discussions on the Customs and Quarantine Agency, and I think we're still kind of looking to see how best to handle that. So we'll continue discussion on Customs offline to try and find a solution to that, and proceed then with the other parts of the bill. Okay, so that's the benchmark. So we are now back at the Department of Chamorro Affairs on page 107. Department of Chamorro Affairs. Once again, as I mentioned earlier, the governor's consolidation of these budgets under Department of Chamorro Affairs of PBS, libraries, were broken out just for because the statutorily they still exist. Department of Chamorro Affairs is slated to receive $991,750 for a total appropriation because there are no additional matching grants and aid for that department and agency. The Department of Military Affairs. Department of Military Affairs will receive a general fund appropriation of $702,054, and federal matching grant and aid provided for that program is $1,547,700. As you know, all of the other costs associated with running our National Guard, which is under the Department of Chamorro Affairs, all of those are 100% federally funded, such as stipends and the buildings and the operations. So this is the local component of the Office of the Adjutant General, basically. Okay. Any comments or questions? Guam? No. Military Affairs. My apologies. We will have a Chamorro Affairs National Guard. After the Guam Council of Arts and Humanities receives a general fund appropriation of $307,500 with a 100% matching grant of federal matching grant and aid on $307,500, and the Tourist Attraction Fund also provides $40,000 to the Guam Council of Arts and Humanities. In addition, under CAHA, the provision of $40,000 from the Tourist Attraction Fund, which I mentioned earlier, goes to support the Guam Territorial Band Program. The Guam Fire Department. The Guam Fire Department has been requested to be budgeted at $29,713,373, which composed of $27,989,678 for general fund. The enhanced 911 emergency reporting system provides $1,650,630, and the flame fund provides $73,065 based upon the revenues submitted by the governor, for that total appropriation of $29,713,373. And as you see in that column on the other side of that page is the current run rate for the agriculture. Okay? Agriculture, fire department. Yes, Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I just had a question on GFD's salaries category. Did they, is this account for a fire recruit cycle?
Yes, the 15?
So it's 15, it's not the 30 that they initially had.
It's 15. 15 was
It's 15.
requested, yes.
Okay, you know, and then I know we do have another legislation before the body that would require them to keep the first 30, you know, because initially last year they sent out a notice to the 30 recruits that they were selected, and then a few weeks later retracted that. And so, you know, during that period, these individuals had done what they had to do in order to comply with the selection. And so what I want to do, and I'm asking for your guidance if this is the proper place to put it, is to ensure that the initial 30 individuals that were selected are still maintained in that priority listing. And I have the language available if this is the section we would need to do that, or if it's maybe somewhere in the miscellaneous.
Is that, but wasn't that bill passed?
No.
Oh.
It
Did
was
they
it
have-
was it was referred back. It was referred back to the committee.
Was it, I'm sorry?
It was referred back to the committee.
Okay.
Yes. It was on the floor, and then it was referred back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So yes, that's the.
Right. I would put that in the because it's a bill that has had a public hearing. If you wanted to add it, I would make that motion under the miscellaneous provision and not in this provision.
Okay, and then so, but it won't be exactly what that bill is. What that bill does is use the E911 funds to hire the recruits. All I want right now, at least for this time, is to ensure that the top 30 selectees are still that priority list, are still on that priority list.
Okay.
So
the-
since
yeah.
we're appropriating now for that,
Right.
for at least 15, we just wanted to make sure that at least of that 15, they're from that 30.
Okay. I would put that again in, I would put that in the miscellaneous provision.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Guam Educational Telecommunications, oh, I'm sorry. 637,072 was requested and is being provided for Guam Education PBS. Okay. PBS? Yes. That's KGTF. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Or their budget. Yeah. Chamorro Land Trust. The Chamorro Land Trust is budgeted to receive $639,954, and this is coming from the Chamorro Land Trust operations. Just want to note for the record, they've collected additional money, and I think we're going to program some of that for some of the other programs rather than just spending it on salaries and staff. Yeah, so we're providing them some additional authority. That'll be in a budget, in a separate appropriation because it's a special fund, so it can be outside of the budget.
Just for the record, real quick, Mr. Chair, I mean, would you be looking at things like possibly outsourcing some survey work and things like that?
Yes, there's things
okay.
like that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so that is the appropriations for the executive branch. Chapter 6, the legislative branch. The appropriation for the legislative branch is $7,446,634, and that's coming out of the general fund. In addition, the appropriation level for the Office of Finance and Budget is $378,737. The next section is the legal services, the Office of the Attorney General. The Office of the Attorney General is being provided a object category budget basically, but just two object categories, personnel and operations. They will receive $11,479,560. Personnel object class would be broken down to $8,056,186, and the operations category will receive $3,423,374. The Attorney General will also receive transfer authority, where he may transfer funds between the appropriations provided. He notifies the Magalaring Guahan and the Speaker no later than 15 working days before the transfer is made, except the transfers shall not be transferred into salary category. So he has full transfer authority within the operations category. The Public Defender Service, Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, last year this body passed Public Law 31-103. This law is relative to creating a central database containing information about repeat offenders who have committed multiple offenses involving domestic family violence, and to be known as the Family Violence Registry Act. And in this act, Mr. Chair, a section indicated that the budget for the establishment and maintenance of the Family Violence Registry database as provided pursuant to this act shall be included in the annual office of the Attorney General fiscal year budget submission to Legislature and Guahan. And so I just would like to know if that was part of their operations in maintaining and establishing that database, and if not, if we could, I'll come back and prepare some language to ensure that it's part of what is being appropriated in the operations object category.
All right. The Public Defender Service Corporation. The Public Defender Service Corporation will receive an appropriation of $3,796,755, and the Public Defender Service Corporation also has the transfer authority between appropriations, provided that notification is provided to the Speaker and the Governor. Mayor's Council of Guam, appropriation support provided by this body as requested by the Governor, $8,344,774 for the operations of the Mayor's Council, $7,578,761 is coming from the general fund, $766,000 and $13 from the special funds, and no more than $6,724,122 shall be expended for regular salaries within the amount, and the appropriation of $766,013 is coming out of the Guam Highway Fund for power. And that was pursuant to the allocation and request by the administration. In addition, provided to the mayors are a street maintenance and beautification, appropriation of $1,036,026, and this is from the unreserved fund balance of the Tourist Attraction Fund that will go to the Mayor's office for beautification of village and secondary and tertiary roads and the operations of the Mayor's offices. Each mayor, of course, receives, pursuant to the request submitted, $20,000 of this appropriation of their offices. Island-wide beautification projects is funded up to by the amount of $470,921, and this is from the Tourist Attraction Fund, and these are pretty much the same appropriation and the same source funding as in the previous years. Ground maintenance for the schools. The ground maintenance for the schools is a program in conjunction with the mayor's offices for the various schools located in their village, and the dollar amount provided according to the breakdown here, the total is $447,863. I have Speaker Wampat on this amendment, or on this section.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, in reviewing the substitute bill, there are some schools, and I understand, of course, why you would think that, like, for example, page 126, that for LP Antolon Middle School, that you would zero out the grounds maintenance when they're currently in a different facility. But the school is still there, and the grounds still need to be maintained. That is also, I saw other increases, and some, again, Aracao 0 FQ Sanchez, because he was transferred, but all being the same, that there are schools that still, the ground still needs to be maintained. And what I've done is that, and I know I didn't give a copy of everyone a copy of the amendment, but what it is to restore those figures from what it was, from what we're currently appropriating to them. So you should have a copy which restores Anton back to 7,864. And it brings GW down to what it was, is right now, 46,114. Talampago Ordat Elementary School to its original 8,932, and FQ to restore the 1,267. And the total amount is actually the same amount that you have, 447,863. So that is the amendment, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to be able to restore it to what it currently is been appropriated.
So basically it's to restore the funding for
Yes.
Antolon Middle School at 7,867.
Yes.
And FP Sanchez at 1,267.
Yes, and GW down to 46,114, and Talampago down to 8,932. And that brings the exact total amount
back.
that you have, yes.
Okay.
And those are the numbers that are currently reflected in this fiscal year.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I have Senator Respicio, Senator Blas, and then Senator Barn. Or no? Okay, Senator Blas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, just an inquiry. How did we derive with how each of the schools, the funding is to be allocated to each of the schools? What was the formula that was, or was there a formula?
Yes.
I'll have Speaker Wampat, who was
Yes,
the original.
actually, before we actually did this, is that we had worked with the Department of Education, the Business Office, and Maintenance. And what they did at one time is they would actually contract it out to one big company to take care of all the schools. So what they did is that based on the acreage, actual grounds that would have to be mowed so many times in the year. So it was based on the square footage of the grounds, and the amounts and the square footage that they gave us was the actual formula that we used. That was provided by a contractor at the time prior to it going to the mayors.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for that response. Minuscule, but just based on my recollection as to some of the green space, I'm assuming that we're doing this as a result of the actual green space as opposed to just total acreage. Because when you compare green space for some of these schools to the green space of other schools, I don't see how there was parity in this. Again, maybe this can be a discussion that will go down the road and look for cost-saving efforts and stuff. I was just a little interested as to find out how we were able to derive to these figures for this breakup. I'll work with the speaker on that one for.
Thank you very much, Senator Blas. Senator Muñoz Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mananasizuas. Again, I just want to share that I do have an amendment proffered here to add to this section, and it would be a new Section 8 is hereby added to Chapter 8 for the Mayor's Council of Guam.
We're on Senator Wampat's amendment?
I'm sorry?
Yes.
I thought on the main motion.
Oh, no.
Okay, I'm sorry. On the grass cutting contract,
Yes.
based on the formula that was said, I know that there were concerns regarding the mayors on the green space that needs to be taken care of or groomed, the formula have been may have short-sighted some of the smaller villages because they say they have same land space area, but the green space is more. And I know that when the formula was worked with Speaker Wampat and the schools, this was the the most fair resolution to the grass cutting formula that was provided to the mayors and the schools. But I do understand and know that there's some concerns of the mayors who are probably doing more. And I know that my good brother is sharing that concern. So I want to say that if I can just take a minute to talk to the author of the legislation, just so that we can look at the numbers based on some of the mayors that came to me and talked about the. You're fine? Okay. Then I withdraw that concern. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah. So, okay. Right.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, what we'll do is I'll work closely with the author of the amendment and revisit the green space available in all the different schools that the village mayors are taking care of. And if we have to adjust accordingly, then we'll go ahead and come back. Is that fair enough?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. On the amendment by Senator Speaker Wampat to restore the funding for FQ Sanchez and Antalan to be consistent with the last year's funding level, and then make sure that all the others are reduced, that need to be reduced to the same funding level of last year. Any objections? No objections. The amendment carries. The Public Safety and Social Education Program will, yes. Yeah, I'm just going through section 5, 6. Yeah, we haven't finished. We're still on the mayors. The Public Safety and Social Education Program, $416,816 is appropriated from the general fund to the Mayor's Council, with each village to receive $15,000, and this is consistent with the previous year's allocation and appropriation. The Section 6, Veterinary, Animal, and Control Services. This was deleted in an earlier amendment by Senator Eileen Yamashita, and the appropriation it was deleted as well and moved back to the Department of Agriculture.
Yes.
Okay. And then we have authority to make payments on prior year obligations that, notwithstanding any other provision of law, the Mayor's Council of Guam is hereby authorized to pay for prior year obligations incurred from its fiscal year 2013 appropriations. Okay. Any other discussion on the Mayor's Council? Senator Ada, and then I'm sorry, Senator Ada. Senator Barnes had her hand up earlier. Senator Barnes.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to add a new Section 8 to this Chapter 8, new Section 8 to this Chapter 8, and it would read: the continuing appropriations to the Mayor's Council, the unexpended balance of the funds appropriated to the Mayor's Council for fiscal year 2012 should not lapse and is available to the Mayor's Council for expenditures in 2013. Mr. Chair, I'm going to go ahead. I'm sorry. I just got this amendment, Mr. Chair, and I will go ahead and give a copy to the clerk. But I want to note again, as the mayors continue to work closely with their different programs in the villages and the need to work the resources that they have today, some of those projects still are being worked on, and they've asked me to see if I can at least continue to put this section in, and so that they may be able to utilize the prior year funds to close the project the programs that haven't been solidified today.
We'll have a short recess until we get a copy of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. The amendment has been passed out, but Mr. Chair, if I may, can we just go ahead and bookmark this, and we'll come back
Okay.
this to later? I'm trying to get justification from the Mayor's Council in reference to the numbers
Okay.
on the pending fiscal 12 numbers
Okay.
for their budget that
All
needs
right.
to be carried over. So if you can give me that, I truly would appreciate
Yes.
that.
All right.
Sanamasi.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next appropriation is contained in Chapter 9, the Public Accountability Standards and Practice. The Office of Public Accountancy, Office of Public Accountability is budgeted to receive $1,302,388, and that's the only appropriation available. The Part 2 is the Guam Board of Accountancy, receiving $424,100. This is the generated by their own Guam Board of Accountancy fund from renewals and issuance of license and testing for CPA programs on Guam. The next chapter is Chapter 10, the Guam Visitors Bureau. The summary of the appropriation is provided for GVB. Total appropriation is $14,022,385 for their general administration, marketing, printing, promotion, research, and destination development. And then I have Senator Barnes on this chapter.
Mr. Chair, thank you again. I want to ask you if we can go ahead and just bookmark Chapter 10. I'm working closely with the Guam Visitors Bureau in reference to the actual tracking of the numbers coming in, and there may be several amendments that may be added based on the information that's going to be provided. My staff is getting the numbers from them also, the actual numbers, so that if you can just
We'll return to this chapter.
return on this, I truly appreciate it.
And Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
Yeah,
Sen-
since we are going to return to this chapter as well, I want to call to the body's attention, and I know the oversight chair is aware of tourism of the Japan Council's advisory regarding Guam as a tourist destination. And so there's also some energy being generated to see what we can do with the Tourist Attraction Fund and providing a little bit more resources to the Guam Police Department. Recognizing that if having a safe community brings tourists to Guam, and having more tourists generates more money for our economy. So the visitor industry has to recognize that symbiotic relationship, and I want to say for the record that we're working very closely also with Senator Palacios, who has oversight over Guam Police Department. So
Okay.
I'm looking for some opportunity in this chapter to do something also.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Senator Etta?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, when we come back also the Mayor's Council, I have an amendment to make. It has to do with the host community premiums.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so there's an amendment to be made there, and then an amendment in the miscellaneous provisions. It's being
It's being copied right
it's
now,
being
right?
copied right now. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. As soon as we get a copy, we'll come back to that. Okay. Chapter 11 is the miscellaneous appropriations. This is the section of the bill which would reduce the appropriation levels contained in the previous sections of the bill, that would then reduce the amount of the appropriation by $14,501,000, which shall then be used for the payment of income tax refunds. And $2,602,957 is deappropriated from the appropriation amounts contained in, or I'm sorry, $2,602,000 is deappropriated from any amounts appropriated from the general fund in Chapter 3 and is reappropriated to the income tax refund payment trust account for the payment of income tax refunds. No more than 15% shall be deappropriated from any individual appropriation contained in Chapter 3, and notwithstanding any other provision of law, no fund shall be deappropriated from the general fund from Chapter 3, Part 2, Sections 4, 5, 6, and 7. So this reduces those appropriation levels. The second portion of the reduction will occur in the amount of $8,422,920 is de-appropriated from the amounts contained in the general fund appropriation in Chapter 5. These are for the executive line agencies and are hereby reappropriated to the Income Tax Refund Efficient Payment Trust Fund. And no more than 8% shall be de-appropriated from any individual appropriation contained in Chapter 5. So there's a max of each of the departments and agencies cannot be reduced by more than 8%. And then, notwithstanding any other provision of law, no fund shall be de-appropriated from those contained in Chapter 5, Sections 1D4, 1G4, 1G5, 1G6, and 1G7. The amount of $383,502 is de-appropriated from the general fund contained in Chapter 6, Section 1, and again is reappropriated to the Income Tax Efficient Payment Trust account. This is basically, this is the de-appropriation from the legislature. So the first part is the executive, this is the legislature. The next de-appropriation is from the $19,505, and this is de-appropriated from the appropriation for the Office of Finance and Budget. So the Office of Finance and Budget will also receive a de-appropriation. The amount of $1,274,038 is de-appropriated from the appropriations made to the Unified Judiciary, and again, this also then gets reappropriated to the Income Tax Refund Trust account. $591,197 is de-appropriated from the General Fund appropriations, from the Office of the Attorney General, and given to the Income Tax Refund. The Public Defender Corporation is also de-appropriated in the amount of $195,533. The Mayor's Council of Guam will receive a reduction of $443,776. The Office of Public Accountability will receive a reduction of $67,073, and all of these are then reappropriated for the payment of past due refunds. And the Treasurer of Guam shall then deposit on a monthly basis $1,101,148 of the de-appropriated amounts from the collections into the payment of the income tax refunds. The public streetlight appropriations will receive $3,590,261 for payment of public streetlights. The sum of $3,709,739 is appropriated from the Guam Highway Fund to the Department of Administration to pay Guam Power Authority for the operations of streetlights. Appropriations to retirees for supplemental annuity benefits and other costs, $11,696,303. These are all the same amounts as the previous years and the same amount as requested by the administration. Is appropriated to the retirement for the purpose of, from the general fund for the supplemental annuity benefits for fiscal year 2013 for direct payments to Guam retirees who retired before October of 1995. So this is the same amount as last year, and the following language is how the administration of that and the payment of excluding those retirees receiving $40,000 or more in annuities. Same language, same operation as in previous years. The next appropriation contained in the is the amount of $16,922,668 is appropriated from the general fund, and $7,500,000 is appropriated from the Section 2718 fund to the Guam Retirement Fund to pay retiree group health, dental, life insurance premium, and retiree life insurance subsidy, and to continue the existing programs contained. So same amount as last year in terms of those programs in support of the retirees. $19,970 is appropriated for the payment of to the retirement fund for Medicare premium reimbursements for retirees who are domiciled on Guam. To save money, we actually pay for the retirees, reimburse them for their health insurance of Medicare premiums. Another appropriation, these are all the same appropriation levels as requested by the governor. Another appropriation is for $242,845 from the general fund for the annuities of Imagalahi and Segundo na Magalahi pensions. So these are in support of our governors and lieutenant governor pensions. $487,150 is for the pensions and retirement annuities of former judges and justices of the Superior and the Supreme Court of Guam. The Guam Board, Guam Retirement Fund Board of Trustees shall enact and, if necessary, amend the administrative provisions to establish proper submission and receipt of all of these funds appropriated to them. The survivor supplemental annuity additions, the amount of is the prospective payment of supplemental benefits for the previous October 1, 2012 to September 30, 2013 are set aside in this, and so the only change in this is just the date. So the administration of the program remains, and we just specify that this appropriation here is for October 1, 2012 to September 30. This is same thing in terms of the payments. The retirees, Section 6, retirees supplemental annuity. The supplemental annuity is also making that change just for the date October 1, 2012 to September 30, 2013. Section 7 is the appropriation for the annual COLA payment, making available $1,100 to each retiree who retired before September 30, 2012, or his survivor, no later than November, and the amount of $6,770,500 is appropriated for the the cost of living appropriation. It also requires that the Guam Power Authority and the other autonomous agencies will pay for their COLA payments of their retirees.
Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I just have a question on line 23. It says, Section 7, unless the annuitant chooses in writing to receive bi-monthly payments from October 1st, 2012 through September 30, 2013. Do you know if any annuitant is actually...
No.
And is the retirement fund...
Do we know of anybody who to get bi-monthly instead of lump sum? Not to my knowledge.
Can we just delete that? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, motion to delete those words.
Yeah.
So you just put a period after 2012.
So the amendment is to delete unless the annuitant chooses in writing to receive bi-monthly payments.
So it's a one-time payment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
And for the record, I agree. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Bookmark the judges and the justices pension of the retirement fund section. and the governor and lieutenant governor, because there's some changes according to the retirement fund that occurred after the bill was put together. Yeah, and the Medicare premiums too.
But there was no objections to my amendment?
No,
My
there's
motion,
no
it
objection to
passes, okay.
your amendment passed.
Passed, thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
So, Mr. Speaker, can we just, there's a forum today that the congressional candidates are being invited to, and I know one of us for sure has to go to that. Can we just recess till 2 o'clock?
Yes. On the motion to recess until 2? No objections? We're in recess.